Yemen has been suffering from a terrible cholera outbreak since 2016, and it's having devastating effects on the country that are still present now and that will present afterwards. There are multiple solutions available, and in this video, we will compare and contrast the positive and negative impacts of the two.
In terms of epidemiology, cholera is a communicable bacterial infection that spreads through fecal-oral contamination. Outbreaks are most common in developing countries where infrastructure is not yet fully developed and clean water and sanitation are not under control. This is why an outbreak occurred in Yemen, where water and piping systems got destroyed during conflict, leading to sewage water contaminated with feces mixing with the people's drinking water.
Next, the microbiology. According to UpToDate.com, a website curated by medical scholars, the cholera disease is caused by the pathogen Vibrio cholerae. According to the CDC, there are more than 200 subgroups of Vibrio cholerae that we have identified, but only V. cholerae 01 and V. cholerae 0139 emit the toxins that cause cholera. Cholera can be tested for through feces testing, as that's where it usually inhabits in the body.
As for the pathology, according to Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 10 people will have severe symptoms, such as watery diarrhea, vomiting, increased heart rate, dry mucous membranes, low blood pressure, dehydration, muscle cramps, and in very severe cases, kidney failure because of the fast loss of body fluids. It could also cause electrolyte imbalances and even coma. The bacterial infection is deadly if not treated properly. Now, I'm going to talk about the social impacts of the cholera outbreak in Yemen. The outbreak started back in October 2016. In December 2019, the EMRO reported a total of 2.2 million infections since 2017. Children under 5 years old made up 1/4 of the total cases. The infrastructure that controls sanitation was destroyed. Sanitation workers stopped being paid, which caused garbage and sewage to congregate on streets and spill into homes. Water purification infrastructures got bombed, which caused the dirty water to get mixed with the clean water. According to the United Nations, 16 million people in Yemen don't have access to safe water and basic sanitation. It is estimated that at the end of the outbreak, there were 2,400 deaths, 21% of which were children.
The cholera outbreak in Yemen has had major economical impacts, most coming in the form of worsening the economic damage of other humanitarian crises in Yemen. According to the New Humanitarian, ongoing conflict has diverted more money towards war efforts and less towards civil servants, causing these workers to go on strike. This includes sanitation workers, and as garbage and sewage piled up on the streets, rain washed the bacteria into homes, worsening the impact of cholera outbreak. It's a cycle. The disparity of sanitation when it comes to food and water is making the prices of these items increase dramatically, making citizens unable to afford them. People already displaced by conflict now need to consider areas with cleaner drinking water when they move. Doing this, they leave behind their jobs and their stable income to live in camps without economic support. Social welfare and the economy have essentially been destroyed. With prices of food and water increasing and families losing their jobs, people will starve. Economic instability and corruption has made organizations reluctant to donate towards Yemen. The UN had promised at the start of the outbreak to delegate $2.3 billion to the crisis. However, only $1 billion has been given.
So, what are the environmental impacts of cholera outbreaks and the situations that lead to them? The environment in Yemen is negatively impacted by cholera epidemics due to lack of hygienic water infrastructure, which means sewage and other pollutants contaminate the war-torn environment, and the unsustainable practice of single-use medical resources for treatment of hospitalized cholera victims. During an epidemic, there will be less concern with how people are harming the environment and more focus on simply surviving due to an induced panic. Many of the people who get the disease will need to undergo hospitalization, which creates a lot of trash as each patient needs medication and resources that are single-use only so as not to contaminate others. Finally, the lack of sanitation due to an inability to remove sewage will mean that all the water is dirty and polluted, and therefore many fishes and water plants will die, which will affect the natural ecosystems of the place.
A scientific advancement in medicine that has helped with the prevention of cholera is the household disinfection of water with an active chemical such as chlorine or iodine. This would put less of a strain on the government's responsibility to install infrastructure and more responsibility on citizens to purify their own water. Using a form of water treatment that happens in the house of individuals would be an adequate solution in situations where large infrastructure for water treatment are not feasible for social, political, economic, or environmental reasons. Household water treatment can come in many forms, however the advancement I'm discussing is the use of disinfectant. At-home purification can be done with either tablets or liquid forms of the active ingredient, and generally a single portion of the solution can purify a liter of water. According to Livestrong, the active ingredients in the purification tablets, usually chlorine or iodine, deactivate, meaning weaken or kill, the pathogen inside the water, making them unable to reproduce inside your body and make you sick. This happens because chlorine and iodine are able to break apart the chemical bonds in the microbes. So how the tablets work: you place the tablet in a container of water and you let it sit for 30 minutes or more. During this time period, the chemicals in the tablet will disinfect the water. The amount of water able to be disinfected from a single tablet varies based on the size of the tablet and the concentration of active ingredients. This is the chemical reaction that happens when you place the tablet in the water, according to Lentech. Unlike infrastructural water treatment, this method doesn't remove large or solid matter from the water and would have to be used in conjunction with other forms of household water treatment or in conjunction with an infrastructural water treatment plant. This is an example of a pack of such tablets from chemist warehouse.
The second solution would be to use treatment plants to clean water. Depending on if the water being dealt with is sewage water or simply water that needs to be cleaned for drinking, there are two separate processes. The first process is to avoid feces mixing with water supplies so that it doesn't contribute to the fecal-oral transmission threats of diseases like cholera. According to the YouTube channel Concerning Reality, sewage water goes through a pre-treatment, primary, and secondary treatment process before entering the disinfection area with 85% of the organic matter removed. Final disinfection is most commonly done using chlorine, ozone, or ultraviolet light. Chlorine uses chemical disinfection to kill any remaining bacteria but has to be removed before water is ready to be released. Ozone works by pumping electric current through the water to cause O2 oxygen molecules to dissociate and combine with others, which creates O3 molecules, also known as ozone, a powerful oxidant that will destroy cells and therefore kill bacteria. The UV method works by using ultraviolet light to shred the DNA of bacteria so that they can no longer multiply, which means that if they are ingested, they are harmless to the people. Now that it is safe from fecal-oral disease transmission threats, the water is discharged into a natural water body or can be further treated and distributed for drinking in places like Yemen where clean water is scarce. The second process disinfects cleaner non-sewage water that comes from lakes, water bodies, wells, and streams so that it can be drunk safely. Another video by Concerning Reality says that this water goes through coagulation, where coagulants with opposite charges to the suspended solids in the water neutralize the particles and allow them to stick together in the flocculation basins. The particles turn into sludge that is removed in sedimentation basins, and then sand filters trap waste particles to leave the water clear. Activated carbon particles have tiny pores which can trap bacteria and sediment, so this is sometimes used too. The final step in the process is to disinfect the water using either one or a combination of the chlorine, ozone, and ultraviolet light disinfection methods explained above. After all this, water can be delivered through pipes to the citizens for safe drinking. Although the processes mentioned deal with slightly different water, they both consist of using machinery and systems to cleanse it and ensure it does not end up creating unsafe situations for the populations near it.
Now I'm going to talk about the pros and cons about each of the solutions. Due to civil war, water purification plants have been destroyed, bringing in pathogens such as cholera and other water-transmitted diseases. Both water tablets and water plants are valid solutions to prevent the spread of cholera. Less people getting the bacteria equals less death. One of the most positive effects of the water plants would be that people would have purified water into their house and they wouldn't have to do anything to purify it. But the main issue with the water plants is that Yemen is in an ongoing civil war. The reason why the water is dirty in first place is because the water purification sites got destroyed. The water plants would also need to be built all over the country, but Yemen needs help fast. So I think that the best option would be to use the water tablets because they are a fast solution and accessible. A very common way of purifying water is by boiling it, but 60% of Yemen's population doesn't have access to electricity, so they can't do that. So they could use water tablets because it's an easy and safe way to purify their water. The water tablets are also very easy to transport, but there are also some negative things about the tablets. The tablets use chlorine and iodine to disinfect the water and kill the pathogens. Some people may be allergic to these components. The water tablets take 30 minutes to purify the water, so people can't use them immediately. Water tablets also give a taste of chlorine and iodine. Science used to solve problems in society. Without science, lack of clean water and sanitation would cause outbreaks of cholera. This means that without science, many problems that affect society wouldn't be able to be solved.
Next, I'll talk about the economic impacts of both solutions and their consequences. So both solutions prevent cholera, which will decrease the amount of money spent on medical care for cholera treatment. Household water treatment options such as disinfectant tablets are significantly less expensive than infrastructure water treatment plant, making them more economically viable. According to Livestrong, the price range is around $10 to $12 for a packet of 30 to 50 tablets, usually a single tablet being able to disinfect a liter of water. Citizens would likely have to make the purchase themselves, which would negatively affect the citizens, as 52% of them are living off of under $2 a day. Yemen also has a high amount of government debt, adding up to $30 billion in 2017, which would hinder their capability to pay for this option, forcing the citizens to. This is a prevention option that requires many purchases, which could be seen as inefficient compared to a long-term solution. Okay, so next I'm going to be talking about the water treatment plant. According to Samco Tech, an industrial-sized wastewater treatment facility of 150,000 gallons per day can cost anywhere between $500,000 to $1.5 million to construct. Due to Yemen's debt, it's probably not feasible to pay for the construction of all of this all over the country. In addition to this, the constant bombing would mean that whenever they get destroyed, all of the money would be wasted. Yemen's government is extremely corrupt, so the funds that they say are going towards these wastewater plants could be going elsewhere. Water plants are a one-time expense plus upkeep, meaning that if it isn't destroyed, it's more cost effective. Construction of this would also give jobs to people. In conclusion to my pros and cons, because scientific solutions to problems often come at an economical cost, it's important to evaluate the pricing of solutions from an INS point of view. It's also important to consider how scientific advancements impact the economy.
Because science is used to solve environmental problems, it is important to look at these scientific solutions and the problems from an INS point of view, considering how they will impact the environment on our planet. We need to ensure that when we use scientific advancements to solve problems, we consider how that will impact the environment as well. For example, we need to ensure that the sciences used do not waste resources or end up putting many pollutants into the environment. Both infrastructure-related solutions and tablets have the main advantage that they make the water clean and prevent epidemics. This in turn means less people get sick and go to the hospital, which creates trash. If people have access to clean tap water in their homes, they don't buy plastic bottles of water which pollute the earth. Water plants work towards a cleaner general ecosystem by tackling problems with sewage as well as drinking water, compared to tablets that only clean the water they are put in and don't offer a sewage solution. On the other hand, building a water filtration plant means using land, which could mean cutting down trees to make space. Building a plant and running it takes energy in the form of electricity. Creating a pipe system from scratch also takes a lot of energy and heavy machinery, and if pipelines have to go through forest areas, big machines have to break through and destroy all the nature and natural root systems to build. Because there is a war and constant bombing in Yemen, water plants and pipes that are built have a high risk of being destroyed and resources wasted constantly rebuilding. One of the drawbacks of the tablets is that they come in packs, so each time they are used, there will be packaging polluting the environment. Also, if water with disinfecting chemicals is put into the environment because there is no way to dispose of wastewater due to lack of infrastructure, then the disinfectant properties may also kill good and harmless bacteria that live in their own ecosystems. If the tablets are the main and relied on way to clean water, there will need to be many produced, which will use a lot of resources compared to water cleaning systems which just keep going after having been built. If there are no factories to make the tablets in Yemen, they will also have to be shipped in large quantities, which will mean a lot of pollution from transportation fuel or having to build factories, which is also energy consuming.
Overall, we have concluded that due to Yemen's overall social, environmental, and economic instability, a more short-term option that requires less commitment would be more suitable. Therefore, we would recommend that until Yemen is in a more stable position, they continue using the disinfectant tablets and make more of an effort to distribute them to communities without access. This would offer a short-term solution that would keep people healthier until conflicts settle enough and building a water treatment plant is realistic.